For those of you who use your debit card frequently or even daily, your money is at risk. Criminals are stealing consumer data from ATMs at the highest rate in 2 decades, with thefts on bank property jumping more than 170% between January and April of this year. But this is no traditional stick-up. You will never see these criminals. What do you need to know about debit card theft, and how can you keep the information protected? We bring in Sam Ditzion of the Tremont Capital Group, along with Greg McBride of Bankrate.com. Greg, why the sudden surge? This is really dramatic.
Well, Liz, really, this fraud is a byproduct of all the breaches that we've seen, and it's just a reflection of the fact that this is the age we live in. The more electronic we become, the more electronic the criminals have become. So as consumers, we have to be really vigilant, whether we're using a debit card, a credit card, or anything else. Keep close eye on your transaction activity. Monitor that very closely. If you see anything unauthorized, report it to your financial institution pronto.
Well, apparently a lot of people aren't seeing anything. Sam, let me bring you in. We brought you in because you are a leading consultant to the ATM and self-service industry. How did it get to this point? They're using tiny cameras. They're using things called skimmers. They're actually bolting on keyboards on top of the real keyboards at ATMs.
That's right, Liz. So there's really 2 types of fraud relative to ATMs that seems to be increasing, and it seems to be getting worse. The first type is what you referred to as a skimming device. And a skimming device essentially is a device that captures card data, and it typically is put onto an ATM, also point-of-sale terminals, but in this case ATMs, and it's an overlay device. That captures the card information. Something else, either an individual or a camera, can capture the PIN information, and then a card can be cloned and then used to take out cash at any ATM in the world. The second type of fraud that seems to be increasing is more sophisticated. It hasn't happened as much in the United States as overseas, but it is relative to malware.
Now I get nervous because I pull up to the ATM and I see that the bank itself has cameras. Aren't they supposed to be monitoring all of this? Greg, who is going to pay me if my money is stolen?
Well, that's the thing. If you report it to your financial institution, you don't have any liability. That liability rests with somebody else. But when we're talking about something like an ATM card or a debit card that's attached to your checking account, that's where the problem lies, because you have the hassle of basically getting the horse back into the barn. The money's gone. Now you have to get it back. And even if you don't have any liability, there's still going to be a hassle in the interim until that money's replenished. Okay,
so we're saying monitor your online mobile accounts. Go on the websites, right, Sam? And make sure you don't see a couple of dollars missing here or there. As I understand it, they'll just take a few so as to not flag people into saying, what's this $200 expenditure that I didn't authorize?
Right. I mean, I think that the key is, and as Greg pointed out, basically, if you see something suspicious, say something, number one. And number 2 is consumers are really part of the solution here. So be vigilant. Anytime you see anything even remotely suspicious, call your bank, talk to the bank, potentially even call the law enforcement or police if there's something obviously wrong or an individual there that doesn't look right.
Greg, isn't some of the onus now on the actual manufacturers of the cards? You go to Europe and these cards have chips in them. They're less inclined to force you to do pins that could be captured, I guess. Is there a better way that we should be moving toward at this point?
Well, this is an area where America's really lagging behind, quite frankly. And I think a lot of it's been because of cost and convenience. When we go to the point of sale, using either a debit card or a credit card, we just swipe the card and that's it. But it's not a very secure way. You look at the rest of the world where you have the chip technology, where you insert the card, it reads the chip. And in many places in Europe, it goes beyond that and you have to actually enter a PIN. We're slowly moving in that direction, but baby steps. And until that happens, we are, as a friend of mine said today, we're going to lead the league in terms of this type of fraudulent activity relative to the rest of the world.
Sam, we don't want to. You're a guy in the industry. Can't you move them along to safer opportunities here?
It's taken a lot longer than it should have. Both the banks and the ATM owners need to and are in the process of stepping up their game. So basically, in the ATM industry, by October of 2016, most of the bank ATMs in the United States will have the technology to be able to read these chip cards that Greg mentioned. The point of sale industry is actually going to be 1 year earlier, October of this year. So because of that, most of the cards issued by particularly the larger banks here in the United States are in the process of being reissued or will be reissued over the next many months. And then you'll have a combination of cards that have the chips and then point-of-sale devices and then ultimately ATMs that can read them.
Gotcha. Well, and again, know your surroundings. Make sure you look around and cover your PIN with your hand if you can, because there are tiny cameras lurking everywhere. Sam Ditzion and Greg McBride, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.